Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out the first half of the Captivz Clash Edition Wave 2. We have taken a look already at the entire first wave of the Captivz Clash Edition, but this second wave has recently hit Five Below stores here in the United States. Pretty surprisingly, like it came completely out of nowhere. Plush Boy Q was the one that, as far as I know, discovered the figures being available at Five Below, and I had found out that these are actually going to be very, very exclusive figures, and it's pretty obvious why, because we had the Clash Edition 1 come out, and that is like all over Walmarts and Five Belows in my areas, but then we had the Clash Edition Wave 2 come out, and this only came out a few weeks ago, and Dominion is right around the corner, which there is a Dominion line of Captivz as well. So this line here is going to probably be the most elusive line and the hardest to find for any of the lines of Captivz figures, because once these ones are gone, this wave again isn't going to be around long. They're going to be gone for good. You won't be able to get these again, I would imagine, because we will already be moving on to Dominion. And Toymonster International themselves have actually told me that this is a super exclusive line with a very small number sent out to retailers. So if you happen to have a Five Below in your area and you are interested in getting a hold of some of these, make sure you check that Five Below right away, because these again will not last long, and once they're gone, they're gone. But this time we have some brand new species entering the line again. Really excited about that aspect, as well as some returning species, so basically some repaints of previously released figures. The 7 that you see before you right now, we have Velociraptor Delta, Velociraptor Charlie, the Sinoceratops, we have a Baryonyx, and the new species are the Herrerasaurus, the Apatosaurus, and Edmontosaurus that we have in this particular video. There are other new species that are entering the line, and we will take a look at those in the second review of this wave of Captivz figures. I actually considered just doing the entire wave 2 in one video, but it just would be too long, so I figured I'd split it up into 2 this time. I normally review like 5 figures at a time, and that's probably the route I'll go when it comes to Dominion, because I feel like the Dominion figures are going to probably be all new, or at least for the most part. But with the Captivz line here, I figured I would just split it up into 2 videos with this particular wave. But again, all look really neat, and I'm really excited to take a closer look at these with you guys, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look right now. So as far as Velociraptor Delta goes, this time around we have a greenish coloration for the raptor and a major dry brushing. The sculpt of this is exactly the same as the previous versions have been, but we have again different paint application, and we have, it almost looks like it's the same color, like I can even see the stripes and stuff, like the same color as the previous one, but this time we've just dry brushed it like heavily with this light gray coloration all over the place. We do have like the white kind of scars there on the leg, and I think that's about it. It looks like maybe we had like some red right here, like potentially an injury or something, but it's a little hard to really see. We have orange eyes with black pupils. We have pink on the inside of the mouth, and the teeth are painted with a white. But that's really about it, honestly. I don't really see any other coloration on this one. We have like, no painted nails or anything, which is definitely a little bit of a downside. I would have preferred nail paint for sure on the figure. And it's definitely not my favorite version of the Captivz Delta, because I'm not a huge fan of the dry brushing that they've given this one. I feel like the other ones, again, were obviously better. They were more accurate, I would say, as far as the paint application goes. This one is just kind of like a repaint, of course. It's just an attempt to give us another Delta without going too far away from what Delta looks like. You can see there is also kind of like a light gray on the underside of the Raptor. It's still a pretty cool figure, an absolutely awesome sculpt, and a decent looking repaint, but I definitely prefer the older one. Charlie as well. Again, we have Velociraptor Charlie, and this one looks really good, I think. The coloration is beautiful, very nice vibrant greens on this one. We have like some red slices along the stomach region, those black stripes running along the back of the body. They do run from the entire, top of the neck all the way out the course of the tail, so we have some absolutely awesome paintwork there. It's nice to see paint running out onto the tail. We also have a nice light gray for the underside that runs from the lower jaw all the way through the entire underside of the tail again. Unfortunately, no painted nails, which is definitely a little bit of a downside. I would have preferred painted nails, but you can see we have kind of like a blackish wash that has been added to the face to give the face a little bit of color variation. The inside of the mouth is painted with that same pink that we saw in Delta, and then we also have the teeth painted out as well with a white. And all of the paintwork looks pretty nice and precise there in the face. It looks like we actually sort of have some of that wash showing up in certain other areas. Like I can kind of see it in the arm, a little bit there in the thigh. But it really is an absolutely gorgeous looking repainted version of the Charlie figure that we've had previously. This is just a beautiful, beautiful Charlie. The sculpt is fantastic. The paint job is fantastic. This is a really, really nice version of Charlie. I would have preferred nail paint yet again, but the lack of the nail paint isn't the end of the world when the rest of the paint application looks so good. Then as far as figures go that we've had again in the past, we also have the Sinoceratops, but I can say for sure that this is my favorite Sinoceratops they've released so far. This is, I think, the third version now, and I've loved each version up until this point, and although the coloration isn't exactly Fallen Kingdom-ish, this could be taken as a Camp Cretaceous version, because I know there are numerous colorations for the different dinosaurs in that show, but this one I think just looks so beautiful. The coloration is fantastic. We have like a really nice dark brown, and then it seems to have either been dry brushed the dark brown on, or it's been given a nice light brown wash. I'm not sure. I think they might have dry brushed it on a little bit, but you could see that that really nice kind of light yellowish brown just pops so nicely throughout the dark browns of this figure. You can also see the dark and light browns mixing out here on the tail, which looks really, really cool. You have more, again, I guess scars you could call those, because there's just like some white areas that have been striped across that I would imagine. Some have wounds, some have scars. Those definitely look like scars to me. We don't have any kind of nail paint or anything like that, it looks like. So that's one thing that these figures here, this particular wave seems to be lacking, would be nail paint. You can see, though, that in the face we have, again, some of those variations of browns, but we also have some white striping around the eye and then running out toward the snout. You have white underneath the horn of the Sinoceratops, and as far as like the spikes and everything here running up over the top of the frill, you also have white for those. You have some more splotches of white in certain areas elsewhere on the face. You have kind of like a yellowish tone for the beak of the Sinoceratops, a nice pink on the inside of the mouth. You can see the underside sports again that really nice variation of the lighter and darker brown. Absolutely awesome looking paintwork on this Sinoceratops. Again, it looks so nice. The paintwork is really precise, very well done overall. There's no sloppiness to it at all that I can really see, and I'm a huge fan of this particular version of the Sinoceratops. You also have black eyes, and the eyes are painted perfectly as well. So this is definitely a gorgeous version of the Sinoceratops, and in my opinion, my personal favorite so far. And then we've got ourselves the Baryonyx, and the Baryonyx is the same sculpt that we've had in the past, but yet again, just like with the Charlie and the Sinoceratops, I think this might be my favorite version of the Baryonyx so far, because we have a really nice greenish tone for the body, a nice brown running along the back, but this one has been hit with a dark wash, and the dark wash makes all of that detail stand out really nicely, and also kind of gives it like some color variation. It just looks really cool with the dark wash that they've applied, and I love that this company uses dark washes on their figures. Like, it's something that you don't see usually when it comes to minis, really showing you that they kind of go the extra mile to give you a really cool figure. In this Baryonyx, again, it looks really nice and fairly screen accurate to what a Jurassic Park, well, I should say Jurassic World Baryonyx looks like, and they've given it just a really nice, like, kind of ultra, I would say, realistic looking paint application with the variations of greens, browns, and that nice wash tying everything together. You can see we have a pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth, nicely painted teeth with a white, and then you also have a yellow eye with a black kind of slit-like pupil. You can see overall, again, that paintwork is just beautiful on this Baryonyx. So we also actually have some injuries. See, this is what I was saying. We have red here for this one, so we have slits, whereas some of the other ones are white, which kind of more so resembles scars. Unfortunately, no nail paint again on this one, and that's all of them so far. I don't know if any are actually going to have nail paint. I don't think so. But the overall paint application, just like with the Charlie, again, is so striking and so beautiful that I feel like the lack of nail paint isn't really something that jumps out at you. Like when it comes to the Mattel figures, sometimes we'll look at them and we'll be like, oh, well, there's no nail paint. That's such a little thing that they could add that would create such a big difference in the appearance. And you'll notice it quite easily because the paint application overall is usually kind of bad on a lot of the Mattel figures. Like they'll usually paint like half the body and then the rear half has nothing. Whereas with these Captivz, like you could see, the figure overall has paint the entire way through the body, and then they're just missing nail paint, which is, again, a very small addition that they could work on improving in the future, but that is a gorgeous Baryonyx yet again. And then we've got ourselves the Herrerasaurus, and I think the Herrerasaurus here is really cool because it's a brand new species to the line and something that we don't have many figures of. Like, there's just very few Herrerasaurus figures out there. So this one is kind of meant to look like, I guess it's crouching down. Obviously, it's not a quadrupedal animal, but it's in kind of a quadrupedal stance. My idea or my takeaway from this would be maybe it's kind of leaning down to grab some prey, maybe something small. Maybe you're like rushing in to grab a small mammal or something that's nearby. Whatever type of creatures live on Isla Nublar, it's down there trying to get a hold of something, and that would explain the crouching position. The overall detailing looks pretty good on this, like they usually do. Like you could see some beautiful fine detail there in the face, nice detailing in the palate. The mouth is in an open position. The teeth are a little bit jumbled, but considering it's a very small figure, I'm not too worried about that. You can see that the paintwork, again, for what it is, has some pretty nice paint. Again, nice pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth, white for the teeth. We have a yellow eye with a black pupil, and then we have like a reddish brown for the majority of the body, but we also have like this darker grayish brown that kind of leads down and stripes down into the face and everything. It looks pretty neat. And then as you move back into the body, you can continue to see, again, really nice detail. Like, even though I think some of the paint kind of shines the detail away a little bit because it almost has a little bit of a glossy look in certain lights, there is actually some pretty nice looking skin texture and nice detailing throughout, nice muscle definition shown throughout the course of the figure. You can really pick up on how nice the detail here is on the underside of the Herrerasaurus, and you can also see that we have like some splotches of yellows and stuff throughout to give it a little bit more color variation. We also have a nice white here for the underside that runs from the lower jaw all the way out almost through the course of the underside of the tail, but it does cut off right here. The tail is in a very sharp downward position, again continuing to give it a little bit of like an action pose, kind of a dynamic look, I would say. Here on the other side, we do have, again, those slices. This time it's more like scars because we're given the white coloration, but you can see that the paintwork looks pretty nice over here. Again, just like we had seen on the initial side, both arms are in different positions. You can see the opposing arm is leading, this arm is trailing. Same deal actually with the leg. The leg over on the other side is leading, this leg is trailing, and you can see, again, detail-wise, it is absolutely beautiful when it comes to a Herrerasaurus. The muscle definition really shines, I think, on this side, and the scale detail really shines right there in the leg. Like, you can see how good it looks. The hands also are sculpted very nicely. You've got the nicely sculpted out nails. Again, they're so small, but they actually look really good. And again, a really cool version of a Herrerasaurus. So happy to see this enter the Captivz line, especially such a nice looking version. Then we've got ourselves a sauropod. We've got the Apatosaurus, and this, I think, looks fairly close to what you see on a Jurassic-style Apatosaurus, but this one is actually a greenish coloration, whereas you usually see them more of like a mixture of like grays and very dark blues in Jurassic World, but this one has a very nice, very appealing looking tone of green, and it's been hit with a dark wash wonderfully. Like, it really makes, again, the figure just look so lifelike and realistic with the dark wash, and just gives it a very nice realistic tone of color and some nice skin tone. The tail's slightly off as far as, there we go, the positioning goes. The tail kind of curves out and comes around to the side of the dinosaur. You can see the neck is up and really extended, has a nice right turn as the dinosaur's kind of looking around, maybe interested in something. The head sculpt looks really good. If my camera would focus on it, really does not want to. And you can see the eyes painted with a black. Very nice, very peaceful, gentle, giant look for our Apatosaurus. As you lead down the course of the neck, due to that dark wash, you can really see how nice the detailing aspect is of this figure. You can see the spinal column here running along the back, and the skin texture is honestly really quite insane for a figure of this size. Like, the Captivz line really does a fantastic job on the detailing of their figures considering the smaller size. This one has one slice here that seems to now be a scar on the lower part of the neck. You can see right there. As you move along the underside again, there's no alternate coloration down here. We continue with that greenish look with the dark wash, again amplifying all of the detail very nicely. You can see like skin wrinkles and skin folding and everything here throughout the course of the stomach of the dinosaur. Muscle definition, of course, in the legs. Nice wrinkling right here in the shoulder blade as well, like leading up here. You can see some nice skin wrinkling. The feet all look really good. Again, as far as what a Jurassic Apatosaurus looks like, I feel like they look pretty nice. No painted nails. Again, I'm going to keep mentioning that, but I think all of them in this video, I don't think anybody's had painted nails. But as far as an Apatosaurus goes, when it comes to a minifigure, this is unquestionably the best version. When it comes to a Jurassic World style Apatosaurus, it is just gorgeous as far as the sculpt, and I absolutely love the paint application of this one as well. Really nice figure. And the final one is also a very exciting one. This is the Edmontosaurus. This one I do have a little bit of a problem with. I think it looks great, has a very nice, very appealing look to it, but the tail is just really short for some reason. I don't know why they made the tail so short. Definitely could have made it look nicer with a longer tail. But outside of the shorter tail, I feel like the detailing again looks pretty nice. Like we have a lot of really nice skin tone. And this one here has been hit with a dark wash, kind of a glossy dark wash, which is very interesting. But it actually makes the detail pop really nicely on the figure, like with that kind of glossy dark wash to it. It really does look pretty cool. We have some nice variations of kind of like a very dark gray and some greens and browns in the face of the Edmontosaurus before transitioning to a yellow on the snout. You can also see the eye is painted with a black. Has a very nice appearance to it with so many different varying tones of color. I don't think we have paint on the inside of the mouth, but the mouth is just barely open, so you can't really see in there too well. You do have some like very dark gray stripes that kind of run back here, and then stripe throughout the entire body, honestly. Like you can see them striping through the stomach, up here in the back, through the thigh, and even down here in the tail, and it actually runs out the course of the entire tail almost until we get to the tip. You can see kind of like a really neat ridge line running along the back of the Edmontosaurus. The hands and everything look pretty nice down here, very nicely sculpted out as far as the fine detail goes there as well. Same deal with the rear feet, although I would say the rear feet almost look a little bit more like a predator type of a foot more so than a herbivore, so that could have been a little bit better, I would say, as far as the rear foot goes. Doesn't really look too Edmontosaurus-like, but the paint application, again, looks really cool. The fine detail definitely looks really nice, and everything overall has that, again, Captivz Jurassic World feel to it. I just think the proportions of the Edmontosaurus are off a little bit, especially when it comes to the tail, but outside of those proportion issues, I think it's a very cool looking Edmontosaurus and another awesome addition to the Captivz line. Now, just like with previous editions, each figure has to pop together, so that kind of gives you some articulation. With the Edmontosaurus, it's in the tail. You can see it can swivel all the way around. There's nothing else on this one that you have to attach. I will say that this wave has been potentially the most difficult wave when it comes to actually popping the figures together, but what's weird about it is it's only the figures that we've had in the past, which did work really nicely in the first few waves, that give me trouble. The Herrerasaurus as well only has the tail, and since these are brand new figures, these ones went together very smoothly. Same deal for the Apatosaurus. Again, same deal here with the articulation in the tail. The head, neck, everything is already pre-attached when you get the figure. But when it comes to these guys, like the Sinoceratops was an absolute nightmare for me to actually pop together. And in fact, I don't know that it's even perfectly together. You can see a little bit of a gap in the neck region. And these guys were really hard to get together. They do have articulation in the neck and tail, but I don't really want to try to move them because they seem to like want to pop back out and they don't sit in very well. You can see it can move. Like I've got the Baryonyx here, who was a little bit of a hassle to put together, but not too bad. He was one of the ones that was previously released that wasn't too terrible to actually, put together. But you've again got articulation in the tail and the neck. That's where you pop that one together. The Raptors, though, were definitely not easy to put together. Delta still doesn't have his tail on perfectly. That's the only area that he has articulation. Like, I don't even want to move it. barely moves at all. And I got to try to pop it back in. But he has the articulation of the tail. Charlie was another one that was a nightmare to try to get put together. Also articulation in the tail, kind of trying to pop it back in a little bit. It actually looks okay now. And Charlie has articulation in the neck, but I don't want to try to move that one either because I don't want to mess up the fact that I actually have them together. You can see, though, that all of the figures balance really nicely, which is also another of the many big-time pluses for this line. As far as the size goes, I'm not going to measure them all. You probably have a pretty good idea already, roughly, of what the size of the Captivz figures are. We are already like 4 waves into these figures with the initial line. We had a Camp Cretaceous line, and now 2 from the Captivz Clash Edition. So you should probably already have a rough idea for a size. If not for like a length, you're looking at about 3¼ inches or a little over 8 centimeters there for Charlie. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Captivz Clash Edition Wave 2 figures, and you can definitely see again that the size is drastically different between them and these other figures here. And in my opinion, it honestly makes them so much more impressive when you see how much larger, for instance, even the Attack Pack Colovosaurus is in comparison to them. And then when you look at them in the closer look, it's like, man, the detail and paint application and everything is just mind-boggling for their size. So looking at them in comparison to these other figures here, I think would hopefully help you gain even more respect for them. And then for another size comparison, and a figure I would love to see actually get a release in the Captivz line, there is a Mattel Mini Jurassic World Cerrerasaurus. And although the Mattel figures have really beautiful sculpts, I feel like they are light years apart when it comes to the actual paint applications of the figures. And I feel like even the sculpts of the Captivz figures are most oftentimes better than the Mattel versions, but really cool sculpts on the part of the Mattel minifigures, but I personally definitely prefer the Captivz figures. But if you happen to have any of the Mattel minis, then hopefully this as well will help you with a comparison. So this newest Clash Edition wave of the Captivz figures from Toymonster International looks to be another very promising wave, and maybe even better than the first wave from the Clash Edition, because there's just so many cool species included in this one, and some of the nicest versions of some previously released species that I think we've ever had. The Herrerasaurus is beautiful. I love the sculpt. I love the paint job of it. Pretty cool pose with the downing, kind of like a little bit of a crouching position, maybe trying to grab some sort of a small animal to eat. I think they've done a great job on that figure, and it was also a very nice choice because we have very few Herrerasaurus figures out there, so it's always awesome to have another one from another company. The Charlie figure is quite possibly one of, if not the nicest versions of Charlie that we've had. I think they did a great job on the paint application, very nice tones of color, and of course the sculpt is fantastic, just like it was on the first version, which this is the same sculpt. We also have Delta, which Delta looks pretty good, but isn't my favorite version of Delta. I feel like the paint job is okay. I'm not a huge fan of the dry brushing they've given it. I can understand why they did it, because they have to kind of create a different version for this release. They don't want to just straight up re-release the same figure again. But again, I feel like the previous versions were definitely better than this particular Delta. Still a fun figure though, with a fantastic sculpt. We also have the Baryonyx, which in my opinion is my favorite Baryonyx from the Captivz line so far. A really nice sculpt, of course, but the paint job of this one with that nice dark wash and all of it just tying together so beautifully makes this my favorite Baryonyx released so far in the Captivz line. We also have the Sinoceratops, which as well is my favorite version of that dinosaur that has been released so far. I feel like the sculpt, of course, again, like I've stated with all of these, it's awesome. Really nice, very highly detailed and very screen accurate sculpt to what a Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom Sinoceratops looked like, as well as Camp Cretaceous. But the paint job of this one just looks so good with the different tones of brown, all of it looking very nice and natural on the figure. Nothing really looks like paint, I think, on that one. It looks like body color. So overall, that as well is my favorite version of the Sinoceratops to date. Then we've got ourselves an Apatosaurus, which the Apatosaurus is gorgeous, beautiful, very elegant looking sculpt to it, as well as a really nice green paint scheme with a nice dark wash tying all of that paint application together as well. And I think that they have done a fantastic job of kind of giving it that Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom style look to the Apatosaurus with that very nice gentle giant look. And overall, that is another extremely exciting species entering the line, a brand new species to the Captivz line that I'm really happy to see entering it, because more sauropods, everyone. I love sauropods, so I never get enough of those. And then we have the final entry into this particular review, which is the Edmontosaurus. And although it's definitely not my favorite figure from this wave, I am still really happy to see an Edmontosaurus entering the line. I feel like the sculpt, as far as the proportions go, is a little weird, similar to their Stegosaurus, where their Stegosaurus has kind of like a larger head than it probably should. That's pretty much how this one looks, and has, again, a little bit of a short tail. The head looks a little bit too big. Everything just looks a little off proportion-wise, but the sculpt still has some really nice fine detail to it. And another really nice paint application. Definitely a big fan of the paint apps and the way that they've tied it all together with that dark wash on that one as well. So all of these figures, in my opinion, are really cool, and definitely some more awesome Captivz that are going to be pretty hard to find in the future. So if you are interested in these, again, make sure you head to your local Five Below as soon as possible to pick these up before they transition to the Dominion figures, or even back to Clash Edition Wave 1, because in my local Targets, they had the first Clash Edition hidden behind these ones. So once these sell out, then they go back to the original Clash Edition, and you don't want to miss out on these. So make sure you check your local Five Below, pick some of these up if you can, and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.